Oh, okay.
Yo!
No, it's just going.
Oh, there we go. There it goes.
Oh. I'm going to give a few compulsory things, sort of like last time. First of all, I come from an improvisational background. This entire thing is improv. I don't have a script. Oh, God. So basically, I come from like an environment where I'm used to there being like sounds and whatnot. So please don't mute yourself. If you want to make a sound, if you want to make a jab, if you want to like say something, you want to cough, you want to laugh, anything is better than silence. Please don't be quiet.
Heckle mode on.
Yes. Okay. So, an act of truancy, 1 year in the making. And I actually came to the talk. I didn't actually skip out. People keep telling me, this is the perfect opportunity to just not show up to your own talk, because it's in the title, but, what can I say? Works hard. 1 year in the making being that exactly a year ago, and this is the reason I took this talk, to this day, I started the project. Perfect timing, complete pitch perfect. I'm loving it. Everything is great. So, what about that? First of all, bit on me. I'm Table. I did the whole thing last time, so you have the same sort of spiel. Same drawing. Not gonna, redo that. The most important things to know are that I make music, and I make weirdo art worlds that aren't like usually defined as just purely hangout spaces or anything to do with like Udon networking stuff. I make like single player narrative experience, like stuff that make you feel emotions, and then just like random worlds that try and express things people haven't done before. That's my whole motif. I don't have a whole thing. Okay. So I make music. And this is important. I'm going to also preface, I probably should have said this at the very beginning. This is a very personal talk to me. I'm going to be talking about a very personal project of mine as well as kind of talking about myself. So if you're coming here for objectivity, it's a little more on the subjective side. It's fine. Roughly 2-ish years ago, stood me, 19-year-old Table, suddenly wandering off in the world where I had to go to college. And specifically, I went to college for music composition. And college is scary. College is weird. I wasn't expecting college to be so scary and weird. I sort of became an extrovert. Everything flipped on its head. I still don't really understand why, but yeah, stuff happened. I kind of wasn't expecting college to very much be hey, I'm going in to study music, and I have to write 8-page philosophy papers and talk about like stars, and okay. This is interesting. And I did not adapt very well. At all. Like, I really struggled in many ways. The first semester, I barely got by, and it was with like a bunch of work toward the end that I really had to like push myself. It was an absolute nightmare. Worst stress gauntlet in my life. You thought, if everyone in voice chat thought my stress crunch gauntlet the past week was bad, you should have seen me first semester of college. It was never want to do that again. So, going into second semester, I'm like, all right, I really need to prepare myself. I'm going to do better this time. I promised myself I'm going to do better. I'm going to be great. It is now January of 2020. I don't know if you all were alive in January of 2020, but there was this thing where like a couple people in China got sick, and yeah, so that happened. There I am a few months later. Now I'm back home doing the whole online school thing. Hate everything about it. It took everything that I couldn't do at college and then dumped it completely down the toilet. I had absolutely no chance. It got to the point where I was so completely swamped with like burdening work that I actually just barely even did my finals. I gave up. It was just not worth it. My body just sort of shut down, and I had to like get all of those feelings out, because otherwise I wasn't going to do anything productive. Nothing was going to happen. I very much used VR and VRChat as a means to escape responsibilities. I was like, okay, for me, for years before, and then I just used it as like a platform for, okay, I'm just going to talk to people. I'm going to make these avatars. It's going to be kind of cool. That time it got personal. That time it very much became every single day I would be in VR, sometimes for anywhere up to 5 to 6 days straight without sleeping, just trying to escape life, just trying to not do whatever it is I probably should have been doing because it was all too stressful for me. Skipper drew this slide, by the way. Very good. Thank you.
Nice.
It was a lot. It was a lot of like stupid emotion and just all sorts of drama where I was just spiraling into this creative depression. I had no idea what I was doing and I wasn't sure what my future would be. So then I met this little ghost, and who seems to have since left the instance. That's fine. He was here initially. Yeah, I meet this little ghost. And little ghost and I become pretty good friends. We hang out a whole lot. He starts getting into modeling with Blender. He's sort of feeling like, all right, cool. I'm gonna, try to, work through learning how to do Blender stuff and just like starts making little things. And one day, unfortunately, my controllers died. The worst offense when you're in a VRChat instance. You're having fun and suddenly your arm goes like, bloop, and you're like, no, the arm, and it's all gone. My controllers died, and I was bored, and I was sad, and I wasn't sad, sorry. I was extremely fucking depressed. That's the better way of putting it. So I was like, okay, takes about 2 hours for these stupid Vive wands to charge. I'm gonna make a world. I'm gonna make a world in 2 hours. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna do it before my controllers charge. I don't know. I don't care. I just need to get something out of me. So I'm like, what do I do? I am so stressed. I'm so terrible. I don't know what I'm doing with myself. And he's like, low poly desert. And I'm like, that's achievable. I can do that. With my limited knowledge of Blender, I think I can do that. Okay, cool. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, so immediately I run to my computer as fast as possible. And 2 hours later, I have this. Post-processing really does a number on this one, huh? Yeah, the sky's blue. Yeah. So, welcome to Truancy 0.1. 1 year ago, to this day, probably to this hour even, 32 megabytes. Truancy. You may be asking yourself, okay, not everyone is familiar with the word, and I have many artistic reasonings for why I do things. Why the fuck did I call it truancy? Truancy, by common definition, is, of course, the absence of a child from school without permission. That's what DuckDuckGo says, at least. When you skip school, when you are committing an act of truancy, you are like, all right, I'm just not going to do things. Classically, it means any responsibility. You are just intentionally choosing, I am just not going to be doing whatever it is you should be doing. Why did I call my desert map truancy? Number one, if you're in the middle of a desert, you're probably not doing whatever it is you should be doing. And number two, you are not in the middle of an actual desert, you are in the middle of a virtual desert. As in, you are intentionally consenting to put yourself in the middle of a virtual desert. You are almost certainly not doing whatever it is you probably should be doing. And artistically, I wanted the map to be sort of a weird, I wanted to explore, what do we do when we're not doing whatever it is we should be doing? What is it about our sense of exploration, curiosity? Do we find something about ourselves? Do we use the time to look at the flowers, the grains of sand, everything falling around us as you realize, oh my God, everything's melting around me and everything's gonna die. And you use that to find something about the way you react to that? I don't know. Something philosophical in there. That's what I wanted to explore. Originally, my idea for it was going to be more literally just, at this point, my concept was I wanted a desert and I was probably going to find a bunch of random objects and make a bunch of random objects all over the place. And you were just going to walk around and there'd be umbrellas and dice and hairballs and stuff and just a bunch of weird things all around. And you were just going to walk around and just see stuff. So yeah, some time passes, specifically one day. I throw in some text. I add a little statue of myself waving, going hi, this is the map, and it's all whatever. I made a playlist of music, which is all spaced out over a long period of time that I intentionally rendered out. That playlist to this day has ended up staying there. That's one of the few things that's actually not really changed, which I'll get to at some point in a bit. I added that music toggle, and of course, I added a mirror because the very first thing that people said when I showed them my world the first day was, there's no mirror. And I was like, it's depressing. Right. Yeah. So, 3 days pass. Post-processing's in. Now the colors are actually not shit. I optimized a bunch of things. The file size wasn't like 60 megs for literally no reason. I don't honestly remember why it was like that, but this was like my first serious map project. I had made other maps before then that were literal blockouts, and then one where I just edited the trigger example from SDK2, and I just put like Hollow Knight 3D models that were just like Fortnite dancing and whatever. That was fun, just like real-time lights. But this was like my first serious project where I'm actually going to make something that's just actually gonna exist. I did some stuff. I changed the piano a little bit and saw whatever that was the music toggle, because I wanted the music toggle to actually look like a piano. I don't know, I thought thematic, half buried in the sand. So at this point, I'm sitting there with one of my good friends who goes by like a little Kingdom Hearts Heartless, and we're sort of just looking out at the map, and I'm like postulating all of these cool, like, what if I had this like big tower thing over there, and what if I made like a castle over there? I'm not really sure. And he just turns to me and goes, what if the whole thing was inside this like one giant hourglass? I turn to him and immediately just bellow out the most like deeply just wrenched "fuck you." Because the moment he said that, the moment the words escaped his lips, I immediately knew this wasn't a small thing anymore. No, this is gonna have to be something stupidly big, and I'm going to have to spend way more time on this than I initially thought, because that's too good of an idea to pass up. Okay, so now there's a big fucking hourglass. And it's pretty all right, nothing in it quite yet, but this is already at that point, I took people to the map and they were like, oh, whoa, wow, okay, wow, that's big. And I'm like, yeah, sure, min-maxing, literal min-maxing. Yeah, very, very effective. I had to get rid of the Unity fog because unfortunately the way Unity fog works, if you have like an enclosure, it kind of like takes out the entire sky. So, specifically did not work with my project, which was very unfortunate. Still need to like add some particle system at one point, but that was pretty fun. From there on, it was mostly just, what am I doing? I'm hitting the wrong button. From there on, it was mostly just lots of like little tweaks of like I did more compression stuff with like the what I talked about in my last talk, audio being like quieter, changed up little meshes. I got really anal about lots of tiny things, and I tweaked little stuff to make everything better. I made the world a bit bigger too, because I was like, this probably should be a little more large than what it was. It wasn't big enough, in my opinion, even though people were already thinking, oh, this is massive. So this is around the time that Constantine comes along and is like, okay, so here's the deal. We're going to make an exchange. I need to learn how to do Blender stuff. You need stuff for your map. I think we can work with each other. So at this point, it then became Constantine's task to make new locations, and on anything I requested of him, I was to be the designer, and he was to be the one who would like model the things, and then he would send them to me, and I would, clean it up, make it work in the map, all sorts of deal. So we made this stupid thing. It's like a weird planetarium thing where all the rings are just like revolve around. There was a sun in the middle. At the time, I didn't actually know the standard shader had an emissive property, so I was like, I need to have like a glowing thing. I'm just gonna write my own shader for this, so I just wrote a basic emission shader in like 5 minutes and was like, oh, okay, yeah, that works. And then I've just used it around everywhere because easy. And yeah, no, I just had a location. It's kind of funny, and I'm gonna say, like, looking back on everything else I've added since then, that for several weeks, this location was like the only major thing that was in the map, which meant every time I took someone on a tour, like a group of people, I took many people on tours, as I'll get to in a bit. Everyone like crowded around here. They would all try and jump around it like it was some playground and get to the top and then run around the rings. And I'm like, we used to hang out all up there, and for like several weeks that was like the shit. And then I added a bunch of other things, and I kind of nowadays almost no one actually goes there, which I find a bit funny, but yeah, it's history. Some time passes, a few weeks go by. I made this really big Sphinx thing where I cobbled together a mesh that I found on some website, I think like Sketchfab, with like Mask of the Father. I thought, that's kind of funny. I just threw that in. I added a few other objects that I kind of scattered around. I did a bunch of back-end stuff with the orientation. It's all nice and fun. But I kind of sat on this for a bit and realized, okay, I need to actually do something with that, don't I? And I kept thinking about it. This sort of stayed in the back of my mind that I needed to actually do something with that location. It couldn't just be a big set piece. I mean, it was massive. Yeah, next time, a little time go by. Now the whole thing's sitting on a giant table. If you've ever seen my table avatar, it's the same exact mesh, same texture. It's just that, but really, really, really big. Like even bigger than big. I did more optimizations. I fixed little collision bugs. I intentionally hid a little secret where there's a single quad in the ground that doesn't have collision that you fall through, just to intentionally like break out of the map, because I kind of like it when people break out of maps. And I wanted there to be like options for people to be able, if you were in the know-how, then you would be able to like fly around and whatnot. Just a whole bunch of miscellaneous shader stuff, and it's all nothing more. So a month and a half goes by, and this happens. I kept sitting on the idea that inside of that giant ass Sphinx, there needed to be something. There needed to be some kind of content. Otherwise, the whole thing is going to sit there. It's going to feel dry. It's going to feel like, oh, this is just really big and imposing, and then there's nothing there. So I actually gave it a reason. I gave it a purpose. You go inside the Sphinx, you go down into the temple. The temple specifically being sort of a community center for statues of my friends and like other objects that could like, you could associate them with in a sense, which I actually am planning on opening up at some point to everyone here, everyone in the server, as well as just anyone who kind of knows me. If you want, like, hit me up, and I'm totally down to have more, I guess, representation in the funny hall of like everyone, gets together here, that kind of deal, which is sort of a weird artistic like representative of how like everyone kept being in that place, because it was the most visually polished place, so everyone likes to go and hang out there. It could be a map in and of itself. That was a whole lot of fun working on it. There was also this fun cafe that we threw in that was at the top of a hill, and it came with just nice. It has like a video player. I eventually added a pool table. There's lots of pickups. You kind of just hang out there, look out around at the whole map from the balcony, very strategically placed. I featured it in my last talk, is like I did a lot of optimizations there, and that's where most of like me finding out things. You might notice that most of this map's development was me figuring out how to do all of this. Like, this was my tutorial. This was my literal sandbox of, all right, I want to do something. How do I do it? That's how I do it. All right, cool. Now it's a thing. The whole update started out as a simple sketch, which was this. I simply was like, I want, there to be like rubble around the mirror. And I just drew out some rubble around the mirror. And, that just, we ended up getting that in order. The process of it itself was like, obviously you're going to have like, work in progress Blender stuff before you get the Chad Blender render. Of course, then you immediately put it in Unity and it's like, but then eventually you keep tweaking things, and it gets to be a good point. I distinctly remember Constantine, like his whole thing is he's very used to Blender stuff, and he would always be like, is this gonna work in Unity? And I'm like, well, I can maybe make it work, and I'm like, it's probably not gonna work in Unity, but like I tried to translate his vision wherever possible, and I distinctly remember with the temple, there was at one point where he actually just turned to me and went, you've made it look better in Unity than I ever made it look in Blender. And I'm like, damn. Damn. That actually means a lot. Wow. Okay. Yeah, so some time goes by, and I just do these like little like nitpicky minor optimization things where I like do all the whole LED cooling stuff I did. I like a bunch of Udon things. I just went around and literally every single thing the light could touch, I had to just tweak with, I guess. And I don't know, just I spent a lot of time just wanting to be super anal about all these little things because I needed to practice. I needed to actually get my feet dirty, and I wanted to keep sort of a consistent schedule of I don't want to be not working on this for too long. I just sort of want to put it out and then keep working so that I can stay focused and know what I want to be doing at any given time. So yeah, evidently, the map is currently a pretty all right place. It's like 8 megs or so. It's pretty good. I stopped doing change logs after that. This entire time I've been reading the Discord server you're currently looking at when I'm doing these notes. This is my only form of notes. I kind of stopped after that point because I just sort of kept doing small things and didn't keep track. If you're going to do change logs, do them to completion. Don't be like me. Don't just stop midway through. It's not fun. To be fair, though, most of this is all more recent memory stuff, so it's not too hard to actually break down, but improv time. Let's talk about the Dragon Garden. And I know this slide makes it look all like, oh my god, the Dragon Garden. All right, this is going to be fun. Really, it's more like this. I single-handedly probably the thing that sunk. I don't know if it comes out with the post-processing, but yes, that is a fake transparent background. Single-handedly the thing that has been the bearing of all our issues, that has sunk every, we were kind of consistent with our schedule making stuff, and then the Dragon Garden happened and everything changed. And oh my god.
The Fire Nation.
Where do I begin? It started out with me having this cool idea and drawing it out. I'm like, all right, cool. I kind of want stupid, you got these trees. There's a river that kind of goes out, and I'm gonna have a future area because there's a big hole here, and you just have the skeleton with the sword in it. I'm like, all right, that's cool. So then we iterated on it, and now it looks like this. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is a bit different, yeah, sure, we can work with this. Okay. Then I actually put it in Unity, and I realized, oh, these are all mesh foliages. Okay, that's oh, Jesus Christ, that's 50 million tries. Okay. Wow, that's a lot of, yeah. And it looked like crap because it was just a bunch of random little mesh plants that were all scattered around randomly, haphazardly with Blender particles, and it had no cohesion. It was just wild, and it didn't look particularly good because there wasn't enough of it. Because if there was more, if there was enough that actually looked realistic, your computer would have crashed. So it was not even completely there. So I'm like, okay, we need to redo this. So we redid it with different types of foliage, and I'm started sketching out all right, we're gonna do a kind of a pathway where it's gonna loop around. I have sort of ideas. I started sketching out, okay, so this is gonna go here, and there's gonna be some trees here. You're gonna have this big dome enclosure that you walk around and do a U-turn, and then you walk by a little pond. And I started working on it, and we kept doing that, and I kept revising okay, this is sort of what I want, and then we sort of just kept going back and forth because then that one was bad. So then I made another one, and we did different foliage. And at this point, we've gone through 3 different builds. That completely gets blown out by the post-processing, but that's a bridge. Yeah, we just keep going through back and forth. At this point, it's been several months. It gets to the point where this sort of becomes a meme that we're just stuck in this development hell of we have this good idea and we have neither of us have any idea what we're doing. So okay, none of this isn't gonna this ain't gonna work. This ain't gonna fly. So yeah, until I can figure out what the hell I'm gonna be doing in there, it's just gonna be empty. Honestly, I think it's probably better off if it is empty, just because then at least people sort of see it as a set piece and they don't walk over there and then or oh, there's some stuff here, but it's not good stuff. You know what I mean? It's better to have nothing, so then at least when they approach it, they're okay, there's definitely nothing over there, but I just kind of want to stand there. Versus, oh, I see some trees, and they walk over and they're oh, this is kind of lame. Okay. until I can actually figure out how to design a garden, yeah, it's just going to be empty. Which leads into the biggest lesson of this talk. Don't design gardens. It's not somewhere. And if you can design gardens, give me your home address. All right. Time went by, and I kind of just threw in a whole bunch of like miscellaneous Udon stuff. I let you be able to swim in most of the water that you could find, in particular like the temple area. That's where like the main swim system stuff is. I threw in Oral's funny Udon toolkit camera because I saw it in deep blue and was like, that's pretty nice. And then I was like, this has got some quirks, but you know what? I made it work with the map. It's nice. Some Jet Dog stuff to sort of do. I know this is all going like all over the place, and I do apologize for that, but I'm very adamant about like fun in my map. Throughout the entire development of this, almost every version, you were always able to jump pretty high, and you were always pretty fast when you're moving. At first, it was sort of as like a development, like I just need to get places quicker when I'm testing things. But then it sort of became everyone kind of likes it when you move fast and jump high. It's kind of fun. VRChat World sort of suck when they're the great pug. Like if you're just like, you might as well not even have jumping. So I sort of made it a staple to understand, okay, fun mobility, giving people different options in terms of like, oh, here's a fly stick. I put in Jet Dog's recent car prefab. If people want to teleport, they can teleport, stuff like that. I'm really interested in your rail grinding system and the double jumping and all that fun stuff. I just want people to be able to get around and just have fun doing so, because I think the way people subtly play your world or your experience is like ultimately the most important thing when they're having an experience, because everything's an experience. Whether you want it to be or not, everything's an experience. And if the people are like interacting with your experience the same way that they interact with other ones, and they sort of are like, oh, well, I'm just gonna, I assume it's like, you're kind of like this speed, and you kind of go like, then when you are like, woo, and you're like, woo, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, okay, wow, that's a lot. And your expectations get subverted. I threw in Valgren's footsteps because footsteps in World are very nice and no one's doing them. It's basically Rubik's version of NPCs, which I very much agree with. Yeah, footsteps are great. Footsteps make everything great. Footsteps. and then the pool table. We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
Hey.
We don't talk about that. We'll talk about it later. The Udon Toolkit camera in particular is what allowed me to get some very nice pictures. Like you take that kind of picture. You can take, very nice screenshots of everything. You can take like that kind of picture. All sorts of pictures, which, allow you to be fun and be creative, which I think is very important if you're trying to tweet out about the map, because you need people to have extended tools for getting pretty pictures, because people like tweeting pretty pictures. If you're not tweeting pretty pictures and your pictures aren't pretty, then why even tweet? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Need to scroll this. I got better at lighting. I learned the hard way that you should never generate light map UVs in Unity. Stop generating light map UVs in Unity. Stop generating light map UVs in Unity. Do your own UV2s. Do your own UV2s. Can you all say do your own UV2s for me real quick? Just do your own UV2s. Do your own UV2s. I pledge. Pledge. Do your own UV2s. UV2s. I don't care. Make time for that shit. Do your own UV2s.
Redo it. Who's got time for that?
I use bakery.
Do your own UV2s. X Atlas is nice. Do your own UV2s. It just miles difference. My God, in God we trust. Do your own UV2s. Don't be like me. Don't go and be like, oh, I'm just gonna tick this and it's gonna be fine. And then like a large chunk of your light map space looks like that. Do you see that? Do you all have eyeballs? Do you see what that is? Do you see what Unity did there? Yeah. That's a real light map done by real Unity. They played us for fools. Look at that. It's terrible. Christ. Yeah, no, I kept being anal. That didn't really stop. You all know me. You know the other world I made. I just kept doing things where I'm like, I'm going to keep adding content, but then I'm going to keep doing things to the existing content. And now it's like 60 megs instead of like 80, even though I added a bunch of stuff because whatever, it's fine. Kind of was a little bit crazy there. There was just a bunch of things. I could sit here and talk about this for way too damn long. I could go on about like all the little things. There was one version where I had a fucking city that I found on Sketchfab, and I had that on top of the hourglass, and it was all gold, and I was like, oh wow, look, it's like some like desert city. And then I very quickly learned this thing is kind of stupid to work with, and it doesn't work thematically. And I don't know, there was a cathedral half buried in the sand at one point. I just went through a bunch of versions where I just did stuff. I've been working on this thing for a year. It just kind of happens. What's happening from now? I mean, there's a whole lot. I mean, it's honestly hard to say. There's one area that's coming somewhat after the Dragon Garden where I have this stupid idea for that big hole that I was talking about earlier. Having this giant water whirlpool with a wooden boardwalk with boats hanging vertically down the boardwalk and a seafood restaurant in complete Boston style, fully furnished at the end of it. Did I mention I'm crazy? Why am I like that? Like, any one of you would just be like, oh, I kind of want to make like a seafood restaurant map, and then you just like have this one little building, and then you just do that, and I'm like, I'm gonna make a whole pier and that, and it's gonna be like 1/20th of my world, and that's great. Yeah, so yeah, I had this idea for this under like lagoon cave where you just had a whole bunch of huts and like vines, and would have like a water slide that go from the top of the cafe all the way down. And it would just be this whole interactive thing where you could play like beach volleyball and lay down and have this whole little away, like resort away from being away, which is weird considering the entire map isn't away, but just, that is how it is. The biggest thing that I'm still kind of scared of is that we're going to be doing that one castle idea I had, which is going to have most of the NPCs, which there are going to be many. That has been planned since day one. And like, oh my god, every single room that I don't know quite where I want to put, I'm just going to put in the castle. It's going to be huge. It's going to go underground. There's going to be a bunch of spiraling stuff. I've already started modeling like some of it. I'm a little scared. It's an ambitious project in and of itself, and then that's still going to be like one part of the whole thing, and I'm like, I don't know. This entire thing is I don't know why, but we're just going to do it, and it's just going to exist, and eventually it'll be cool. We just have a whole bunch of like development references where I'm like, okay, yeah, we're just sort of sketching out a feel for generally what we're going to want to be doing, like maybe what like a room could look like, and we just sort of put together some like reference stuff, which was there. I just have a bunch of ideas. Honestly, there's just a bunch of different things that I want to try tackling at one point. Like too many things to honestly list, but all of it's in the works, all of it's on the roadmap. I'm like, I want to get to it at some point. I do want to achieve these things. It's just a matter of, okay, I need time, and I probably need some help with it, and I probably need more tools. Stuff like, since Cyanimu came out, stuff like that has like helped making things a lot better. So then I'm like, okay, now the tooling exists, I can actually execute on these dumbass ideas I've had like 6 or 8 months ago, which feels fantastic when you're actually able to do so. I've got some like screenshots of random stuff that will be coming late in the future that, it's all kind of cryptic and haha, I'm just teasing you all at this point. I'm just being a little goof. I don't know. So what did I learn from all this? And I've already kind of gone on into a little bit of it, but like the big points. What did I, someone who was kind of new to all this creation stuff, learn from making something really big like this? Like a really, really, really big project. Well, the very first thing I learned is start small. Don't make a big project as your first project. Don't do it. Don't stop. You get this advice all the time in the game industry. I'm speaking to you, me from a year ago. Stop it. No. Just don't, please. I'm begging you. I know it's futile. I know I'm like Atlas pushing the ball up the hill, but like, come on. It's just Don't. Just make some like room or two. You can model it yourself. Set yourself some goals and guidelines and be like, well, I'm going to model this myself, and that's going to be the key of the map. You know, I did this work, and that I feel good about myself for that. Don't be like, I'm going to make something super open world and ambitious, and there's going to be a bunch of fully voice acted NPCs with professional voice actors doing dubs for various things that you have batch quests for. I'm going to make an entire Udon Sudoku ARG. That's going to be a thing. Like, why? No, which goes into the next part. Feature creep is the worst. You're going to have ideas. You're going to have many ideas. Stop having ideas. Don't have ideas. Don't have ideas. Ideas are terrible. The more ideas come into your head, the worse of a time you have. Ideas are little gremlins. They take apart your life. You sit there and you're like, oh, I'm enjoying myself having my little pastrami and my, bagels, and I'm living life. I jog every single day. And then you have a fucking idea. And all of that goes away. It's terrible, awful. Have like one or two ideas, and then do those one or two ideas, and then you can have other ideas. Don't mix them. Okay. Bus safety. And I don't mean, hey, keep your seatbelt on. I mean, don't put the weight of your project on people you can't 100% rely on. Most of the reasons that I've had pain the last half a year or so are because after Dragon Garden happened, Constantine and I started to be like, all right, I have no idea what we're doing, and we have no idea what we're doing, and I made a Trello, but I never update it, and he doesn't reply to things, and I'm like, okay, project management is hard. I'm a community manager. That means I come from experience of managing teams of like 10 or 20 people. I don't know how to manage one person. That is an entirely different ballpark. It is way easier to manage a team of 20 people than it is to manage one other person. What the fuck? Like, especially when you give them like complete creative reign over like, you know what? I'm the designer, but like I'm going to trust you on how you execute the ideas I've given you. Go have fun. And then you sit there praying, please be good. Please be good the first time. Please don't. We don't have to do this back and forth thing. 'Cause the moment you have to do the back and forth thing, all of it's gone. All of your time sunken down the drain. It's all over. And plus him needing to get an extra job, him changing, having some life stuff, he very much became unavailable. If you were generally new, he's not very active in prefabs, and that's because he's a busy person, and it's understandable. But yeah, because of the fact I kind of was like, I'm just gonna put off learning how to model my own things for a while because I have someone doing it for me, and then they kind of went away, and now I'm like, that means I've got nobody. Which means stuff doesn't get done. And it's not fun. Mixed lighting sucks. This one's very specific, but like, just bake it. Just bake it. Dealing with mixed lighting, dealing with the like quirks of mixed lighting, the fact that every single time I ever have to bake lights, I then have to go through my entire scene and then turn off casting shadows for like most of the objects. Just because they're underground or they're already in a shadow and it makes no difference visually, but it's just more draw calls. It wasn't until recently that this funny individual very kindly wrote a script for me to help automate that with 2 buttons. Up until that point, I spent an entire year every single time I bake lights, which was often. Shadow casting on. All right, now shadow casting off for this array and this array, and I'd have to go through the whole hierarchy, and it was a very tedious process. Just bake it entirely unless you have to deal with weird bugs like what I had to deal with since day one, where I tried to bake lighting and then this happened. And I still can't explain it to this day. No one can explain it. If I try to bake the lights in the ground, everywhere that there should be light, it's shadow, and everywhere that there should be a shadow, it's light. I don't know. But yeah, until I fix that, yeah, mixed lighting. It's fine. It works. Players have shadows and then they don't complain, and I'm like, okay. It's fine. Tore the shit out of your world. Wakaza knows this extremely well. The only reason I'm even able to stand here today is because I continuously pushed for people to come to the world. I kept taking people on private tours. I got my friends to invite their friends. This world has gotten thousands and thousands and thousands of visits in the past year of just private tours. The link has been shared around private circles. It's one of those worlds that people are like, oh, let me, can I have the link for? And then people have just gone in. People have sent me screenshots of them and their friends just hanging around, and they're like, they're like, oh, look, I'm in the sand. It's all fun. Just because, like, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Visual impression? Do they like it? Do they think like, okay, I vibe with the theme? I'm not sure. I just know that people liked being there, and I liked touring people, and I got a very good like amount of engagement out of just taking people around and actually like getting feedback one-on-one with people about, all right, how do you feel about this? Oh yeah, so this is what I've made. Okay, what are your reactions? Okay, cool. Got some stuff. And then they would always have like one or two ideas, and I'm like, okay, that's good. Or they'd be like, there's a bug, and I'm like, I didn't notice that. Cool. And all of that has been completely invaluable. I have had countless amounts from day one. I have had countless amounts of times where I've just gone in and hung out with various people doing all sorts of weird, wacky hijinks in the world, where I just like get people together and all of us are just like, all right, we're just gonna be in the outhouse, and then maybe we're doing quirky stuff in the outhouse. Maybe we're inspecting the art, maybe we're all fat e-boys. I don't know, maybe we're hanging and vibing. Maybe we're all just in the cafe. Maybe we're cringe. Maybe we're I was just in the pool. I don't know. People, that one was fun. People made an actual world out of my world. They took world space props and, made a whole enclosure out of it, a whole experience. Maybe we're exploiting VRChat bugs in my world. It's great. That was a fun one.
Very nice.
I have had nothing but fun and pleasure doing this. Even though it's painful, even though it hurts me, even though it's been far too damn long, all of this has ultimately resulted in what I think is a fairly constructive and positive, like, all right, it sucks, and I just told you all it sucks, and you just told you all that you really shouldn't do anything like this, but I do have a sandbox, and my sandbox is fun. Now, I wanted to sort of also give a talk on the latest and greatest edition, which I've been working on the past week, alongside the TLX, which is part of the reason I've been crunching so hard, about this funny-ass little log cabin that serves as a spawn point. I wanted to give a whole talk about it and like have different dissected stuff, but I ran into a funny Unity bug where you can't bake lighting with anything that doesn't have UVs, like not just UV2s. If you have an object that doesn't have any UVs at all, and even if the light map scale is 0 and you try and bake, Unity just crashes. It just hard crashes. No message or anything, just CTD, halt and catch fire. It's gone. It just dies. Which, I'm just, this again. This again. And sometimes, dealing with stuff like this, I just sit here and wish nothing more than to just, emotions. The whole thing's emotional. Everything's emotional. Because ultimately, everything that we do as creators is emotional. Everything we do in terms of the experiences we make, the experiences we push onto other people, the way we want to express ourselves with people is emotional. One of my favorite memories in the entire world of just being there was when I was first touring there with several people in this very room right now. It was their first time ever being in there. We started having this conversation about what we thought VR could be, the future of it. And because everyone had joined the world at roughly the same time, the music was all kind of synced up. And I started giving this sort of like speech presentation about like my thoughts on artistically what the map meant to me and all the work I'd put into it and how it helped other people see who they were. And it synced perfectly with this really sad orchestral piece that happened to be playing for all of us at the same time. And all of us cried like little babies simultaneously. It was powerful. It was extremely powerful. I had never understood until that moment just how powerful a well-crafted VR experience could be. It doesn't even have to be polished. It doesn't have to be some massively polished experience. It doesn't have to be 100% complete. Just fundamentally having the idea of what you want to do, what you want to express, and then just trying to be artistic and push that as hard as possible means that you are going to convey that information. It's beautiful. All of this is emotional and beautiful. It's honestly one of my favorite parts about doing all of this is just being able to make people feel all these different ways. The last part I wanted to bring up is regarding where the map is in terms of where is it? Like actually where can you find it? I don't know. How do I even experience this? I think people handle map releases differently. Sort of going counter to what Lakaza brought up in his talk, I feel as if there isn't really any one right or wrong way to go about releasing a map. I think the general consensus is that people should release maps more so when they're done, because right now the trend is that everyone wants to release a map like basically immediately, and they're like, I want purple name, and you put the box on your profile. And like they don't really stop and think, okay, I want to like maybe polish this a little bit more so that people don't just immediately leave. So it's absolutely good, thinking. I agree with that statement for most creators. But I also don't think of that as being the only way or like the case or form. There are a lot of times, especially I'm noticing more recently with game worlds like Panda Slaughterhouse 2 and immersion experiences like Coffee's City 17 world, where you released the map really early on when it didn't have nearly as much stuff. But because you pushed having a community there so hard, you had the backing of it being Half-Life, you had the elements of like, you wanted there to like always be a community. You were in every public instance. You always made sure there was one public instance of like 40 people in there. And because you all fostered this community, you got a bunch of people to give you direct feedback and engagement. This sort of like iterative design workflow, I think, works really well for some worlds where it's not always wise to keep your things hidden for a fucking year and then only just getting to throwing them out and getting feedback on it. Because sometimes you need feedback. Sometimes you need to throw your thing out in the wild and then have everyone go, this is unpolished and undone, and I don't know how I feel about it. Because ultimately, much like how we've seen with some people's maps, everything has a tail end. The most amount of people coming to your map is not always necessarily going to be the people who see it first. It's not like they're going to get deleted. I'm assuming none of you watching or the people here are going to make something that's terrible enough that it'll get deleted. So your maps have a tail end. Eventually, the right people might find it. And I don't know. It's always been a very personal thing for me, wherein I just sat here for a year debating what I should do about how I should, actually go about letting people see my map, see it and experience it, have this thing. Because it's a personal thing. This entire thing's personal. From the very beginning, it's been personal. All the way to the beginning, back to the point where I was basically committing an act of truancy or working on this map, especially when I went to online school this like a year later. I literally just worked on this map instead of doing my work. I was working on truancy while committing truancy. It was all personal. And when it's personal, it's scary. It's really scary because you have all the same feelings that a parent has sending their kid off to school for the first time. You're not sure where it's going to go. And at some point you realize it's not going to be grand. Can I quickly just say, when I first made the map, I actually had this whole plan where I was going to completely do it in the dark. No one was going to know about it. I wasn't going to tease it at all. And then I was going to throw it out there, and it was going to be like such a surprise that it would send ripples and everyone would be like, holy shit, this is the best thing ever. And I would like get immediately spotlit, and it was going to be like the talk of the town. That is really stupid. That's really stupid. Lakaza knows how stupid that is. Like, it's not going to work. That will never work. People need to understand what you're doing, where you're coming from. Otherwise, ultimately, it's going to flop and fail. You're not going to get the engagement. You're not going to have the social aspect of a social platform where we're all creating like content for. It's all recursive. It's not going to work if you're hidden, if you keep it enclosed. And so, sometimes the stand stops falling. It all happens eventually. Your time's run out. You just have to take a breath and let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's out.
You hit publish?
I just put it on Labs.
Hey, congrats!
Nice.
Bravo.
Yay!
I did it.
Excellent.
Did it.
Nice.
World's out.
Real
Very dramatic.
I am actually shaking.
the drop portal.
No, that's.
All right, yeah. So I'll see you all in the after party. All right, yeah. Let's go. So fully guided tour. I'm just gonna drop the portal.
Oh yeah.
I just did that. Oh my god, I just did that. Okay. All right. Don't freak out. Don't freak out.
No.
Favorite?
I'm sorry.
It's public. I finally have a world that's public. That is not a void.
It's in community.
Congratulations.
There's already 3 people in there.
Yay.
Community meetup next time.
Tomorrow?
Now do it again.
Your world next year.
Apologies to anyone watching at home. Like for me, probably not being. I'm gonna be pretty busy with both TLX tomorrow and like the World Jam, so I'm not gonna be in public instances for a little bit. But generally, I'll probably be hanging out there when I'm not busy. And if you have questions, hit me up.
Yeah, I think we're.
It's all good.
I think we're out of time on questions. We're on a bit over.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to stop your personal story right there because I felt like we're going on.
No,
I saw the timer run out, but I was like, yeah, no, I need to hurry this up. Also,
If anybody has questions, they can ask you directly. I
yeah,
suppose.
I'm in voice chat all the time, so you know exactly where to find me.
Congratulations.
I did it, Constantine. I did it, Scully. I did it, Christian. I did it, everyone. B, Skipper.
You did it.
Yay.
Yeah.
You know, I said to release it in
What about
Q2.
the
You did have
sequel?
6 more weeks. You didn't have to do all the crazy crunching. I'm just saying.
You got a point.
So yeah, maybe now makes a little more sense why I was in super crunch mode, because I didn't just have to make the TLX and hand draw a bunch of things. I also had to finish the world. Oh boy, that was something.
Yay.
All right.
No, we should all Fortnite dance in celebration.
Okay.
All right.
And with that, Among Us.
My name is Table, and that was my fable.
2. When releases it?
All right.
Thank you.
Extreme prejudice.
You're weak.
Congratulations, man.
Whew. I am going to need like way too much free time after that. Yeah.
It would have been extremely.
I want to. Can I backflip off stage?